$5 and says, Brian is a lemonhead. I'm not sure exactly if that's an insult or a intention to say he likes lemonade is what he drinks, I guess. I don't know. Sasha Sokovia donated $5 and says, "Oh, SN10, I promise I will wait for you and I'll write you a poem after, no matter what happens." Thank you for that, Sasha. So Blarney, thank you again for your donation earlier. Let's see here. Got some more sponsors who like to thank as well. So let me get to those real quick here. All right, so we have Anthony Meiser, we have Philip Weil, Rick Goldman,
if you're looking for a CRM,
and then we have Matter is Not Solid again. Thank you for that name, I love it. David Jordan, Mark Shadal, Papa, and Steve Wagner. Thank you all so much for joining the green team. So for those of you who got live memberships, and as well as gold memberships, there's more info and content in the community
sorry,
tab
that
on
was
YouTube. So if you go to labpadre.com, or I'm sorry, youtube.com/labpadre, just to go to the main part of the channel that says community, you click on that and you'll find more content available for you. So as I said, we're going to wrap up for a little bit here until we get some more information. So we knew about 2 hours is what they're expecting. So we're looking at about 4:30. So I'd like to go ahead and thank our sponsors that also help out with basically did continue support to Lab Padre.
Change from the components
also,
we're seeing,
thank
but
you,
yeah, we have
Init Weather, and let's see here, John Heyman, Crow Guy, Stumpy, Michael McKenzie, all those guys who've donated so much here today. Thank you so much. Also, a shout out to the mods who will continue to bear through the events here that are going through. So you'll be back probably in less than 2 hours, but the mods are going through and working with the keep that settled. So I'd like to go out and send a shout out to the admins and mods here. So we've got Adam Danoon, Oracle, Chef Daddy, Jamie Velks, Rusty Buckets. Of course, I've got Discord and YouTube mods, Daryl, Levi, and Michael 2001. We've got Discord mods, Connor K, Daniel Lar, Dragon 029, Har, Lewis, Procky, Tablano, The Danks, Tommy01, Bogdan Cranium for YouTube, as well as the following: Dave O'Cannon, Galactica Jeff, Liverpool Ed, Matt W, Astros CJ42, Michael McKenzie, MBN, Neil Omatic, Nick Feisler, Psychonaut421, Rowan, Scotty, Stumpy, 001, and Zen Dragon. So thank you all for helping out and keeping the chat basically a nice, good environment for everybody to have good conversations in, and the community respectable. So thank you for that. So yes, we're looking at about 4:30 local time in Boca Chica before we have another Hop attempt. So we'll be probably jumping in before that time period here with any additional updates as they come along. So talk to you guys later.
So an abort on a slightly conservative high thrust limit, and they're going to increase the thrust limit. So it sounds like just a little software update, a little limit that they can increase, and away we go. So we will see in 2 hours whether that makes the difference that it needs to. Fingers crossed. But yes, so we've obviously been live streaming for a long time. Interested to know whether everybody is still kind of connecting from similar places. I know when we first did the call out to see where everybody was from, we ended up with surprisingly quite a lot of Australians in here as well as all over the world. I'm intrigued to know if that is a little different. So where everybody that's here now, where are you all from now? Many of you from Australia right now. People were waking up maybe in Western Australia very early in the morning. Let me know. We've got a bunch from the UK, Canada, Texas, UK, Perth. Yep. So we've got people coming online from Western Australia who is several hours behind me here. 7:40. It's almost 8 in the morning now. Scotland, Brisbane, Pennsylvania, London, Netherlands, Germany, Greece, Ireland. Holy moly! Now it's going too fast. Now it's going too fast. Look at that. From all over the world. I don't think there's many places there that we're not hearing from. India, Nepal, Belgium, from class, Turkey, England, Bahamas, France, Switzerland, Adelaide, my mum. Love it. Okay. Yeah, right. Well, we have got people from quite literally everywhere. Poland, Colorado, South Africa. Wow. Check that out. Dubai. I would love to visit Dubai one day. Norway. I've been to Norway once and it was in the middle of winter and it was freezing cold and dark the vast majority of the day. Loved Norway though. It was really interesting. I just wish I had have gone there in a better season. On Canada, Carly. Wow. I kind of get a bit of a kick out of watching just the sheer volume of people. Imagine being able to do this sort of thing a decade or two ago where you could be quite literally talking live with full high definition quality video to literally thousands of people all around the world. And I haven't looked at the stats. How many have we got left here after the abort there? We've still got 5,000 here viewing, so that's pretty damn cool considering that we all know that we're waiting now for at least another hour and 45 minutes. Marcus, do you know the different objects on the what the different objects on the screen are? What is in the horizontal and vertical silos that we can see, and what is the thingy with the huge antenna and the big orb to the right? The big orb to the right. I'm assuming the big orb to the right, you're referring to the SN10 test tank. That's like a little mini tank. So that one, if that's what you're referring to, is is a test tank using 3mm thick steel instead of 4mm thick steel, which is what the Starship that we've been watching all morning or all afternoon. That is using 4mm steel. So the tank on the right hand side there is purely a test case at the moment to see if they can hold all of the pressures that they need within the tank with that 3mm thickness. Because if you drop a millimetre from 4mm, that saves you a quarter of the mass overall from all the rings segments at least. Whether other sections remain that thick or not, I don't know. You do ask a good question in regards to the fuel farm, and I might need to refer to people in the chat that actually know a little bit more about the fuel farm than I do. I believe the liquid methane are the horizontal tanks. I must admit, I'm not 100% confident on that. I thought that's what it was. They've got liquid oxygen in other tanks as well, obviously. So, which tanks are which? I've actually got no real solid evidence of. And the tower, I believe, is more of a weather device to measure certain things. I may be wrong in that as well, so I'm not 100% confident. What happens if really fast space debris hits Starship when it's in space in the future? Could it be worse with the thinner steel? Look, not really. If you have something hitting you at orbital velocity, whether it's 4mm thick or 3mm thick, it's going to go through. In fact, it would probably go through if it was 5mm or 6mm or 7mm, which is just not a practical amount of material to use for a vessel that's going into space. The sheer fact is, if you get hit by space debris, then you're potentially in trouble, and that's why we need to be careful to try to clean up the space that we mess up. And a vessel like Starship here is actually a really good start to that, because we can we can make a vessel, a Starship vessel that's got like a big mouth that could sort of go and pick up larger components of debris, load it in with some sort. I've seen mock-ups of some sort of big net mechanism that can just sort of pull a big sort of net down over all the debris that they can pick up in a certain latitude, a certain orbital plane, and then they would bring it back. And because Starship's so cheap in comparison, or it's proposed to be cheap in comparison to all other vehicles that have flown before, especially anything of this that can carry this amount to orbit, you have got the opportunity to send a Starship up to pick up some space debris. If someone's got a defunct satellite that's, they may have paid $150 million to put the satellite up there, they could probably pay a couple of $1 million to bring it back home. That should be almost the cost of doing business in space. I think that you should have to pay to have your garbage retrieved. And at the moment, it's just not practical. It costs more to go and retrieve the space debris than it costs to get something up there. So to a certain degree, I think if the cost to get mass to orbit is so low that they can justify the cost to go and clean up, that's a great thing to do. When are you visiting South Africa? I actually don't have any immediate plans to visit South Africa. I'd like to visit lots of places eventually, South Africa being one of them, but I don't have any immediate plans. Thanks for the question, though. Marcus, do you trust the system enough that it will work as good as it's supposed to before... Don't you? Not going to read the rest of that out. Do you think it is damaged and it will work as expected? So I'm not really sure which part of the process you're referring to there. So I might... If I made the assumption that you're talking about, do I think that Starship, the whole idea of it, will work? The answer is yes, I do think it will work. That doesn't mean that it's not a challenge, and it doesn't mean that I think that there's zero risk and that it's got a 100% success chance of doing what it's intended to do. A lot of people are very skeptical, and I've seen a number of videos on it, and some of the points are good. The fact is we don't have all the information publicly available to us about dry masses and things like that. So one of the arguments I hear quite frequently is, hey, this thing's never going to get to Mars with the amount of fuel that it can carry. And they're using numbers which suggest that the Starship is the same mass as the Mark I Starship. And the Mark I Starship was quite heavy comparatively to what they want to do here with the current Starship. So what's sort of important to recognise, I guess, is that the Starship's evolving. It's getting lighter. They're now trialling the 3mm steel. That drops a quarter off a lot of the dry mass of a lot of the areas, at least, of the vehicle. That's a huge saving alone, and that makes a colossal difference in terms of the delta V that you can utilise when getting from one location to another. So if you're doing a Mars trajectory, the delta V increase, it might be the thing that is being missed in some of these calculations that the odd person's doing there and presenting. Another fairly I would say it's reasonable criticism is that Elon Musk has said a few times that 100 people will go to Mars on a Starship. Personally, I never unless it might be true that you can squeeze 100 people into the Starship. I don't think it's practical to do it though. So the fact that you can doesn't mean you should. And I don't believe that would really ever likely be the case. Could they take 50? Maybe. Are they more likely to take maybe 25? Probably. I think it's more useful to take a lower number of people and just have a huge amount of cargo loaded on board and a huge amount of food that could last for a decade. So that way, if there's an issue and they can't get a return ship back, then there's plenty of food for years to come. And it's all about redundancy. If you look at a mission like Apollo with the moon, any part of that mission that didn't go 100% successfully meant basically mission failure and death on the moon. You don't want that scenario with what we're talking about here. You would ideally want 3 or 4 starships loaded with cargo, with all sorts of, just years and years and years and years worth of food for hundreds of people to just be sitting there waiting before you even take humans on the way. That way, if they land, their starship breaks, it sort of busts, or they lose their cargo, whatever it might be, there's still great chance for survival. They've still got all the equipment from the other starships, and that to me is what it's all about, building in a redundancy to lower the risk factor. And that's not to say that this isn't hard and it's not dangerous. Of course it's dangerous. It'll be one of the most dangerous things we've ever done. Will it be comparatively as dangerous as the moon mission? You would hope that you could put in enough mechanisms and enough resupply missions before anyone goes that maybe it could be considered safer. But there's so many steps to go through before we get to that point. So many steps. The very first step is orbital velocity. If we can't get to orbital velocity, that's obviously a non-starter at that point. The Starship needs to be able to re-enter at roughly 7.6 kilometers per second. It's got to re-enter the atmosphere and have it keep all of its wings on. So I don't like anybody that sort of looks into orbital velocity just will tell you straight away how much force is going to be applied to the Starship wings, those structures. And the idea is to use those wings fully extended like we see them here right now, basically to largely create as much drag as possible and lower the velocity from 7.6 kilometers per second down to zero, down to basically just prior to that flip and landing with no fuel or anything like that being used. That is going to be quite an achievement, being able to re-enter one of these vessels that we see here from orbit with a heat shield, screaming through the atmosphere at some and just dealing with things like you can't bring it in too close to populated areas. The sonic boom from this thing is going to be astounding, especially if it comes in anywhere close over populated areas. So yeah, it's going to be crazy stuff. So I feel like that was a little bit of a tangent there. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, that's exactly right. People say, there's so many people that are against anything that Elon Musk does just because he's rich, and like to a degree, I accept that as well. There's always room for criticism of ideas. I don't ever want there to not be free speech about this stuff. And if I see a reasonable argument, I try to respond to it respectfully. There's people that are that have said that some of these goals that they have just aren't realistic in terms of the number of people that are going to be sent on one Starship, and that's fair enough. That's a fair argument, and I can't really deny that argument either. It's a plausible. Excuse me, phone going. So yeah, that's the thing, and there's so many steps to proceed through to get this to a point where we can see it returning to land. And, potentially by next year, Elon Musk's saying. That to me seems optimistic. I hope he's right. His timeframes obviously can be pretty optimistic in terms of, I tend to double a lot of Elon Musk's timelines to get the more realistic figure, which even if we did that would put it at the end of next year for fully orbital starships to be returning from orbit. That to me would still be rapid progress. But if it could be done this year, that would just blow my mind. And I'm sure everybody else's, because we have to have a bunch of steps. Sorted before that can really take place. We have to have all the heat shielding working. There's no way it's going to re-enter the atmosphere at that velocity without the heat shield attached, unless they're going to do some sort of other transpirational cooling idea or something like that, which I haven't heard anything about for quite a long time. So yeah. The wife just called Marcus. Who have you been talking to for 7 hours? That's a good point. No, I did say goodbye to my wife while I was out before getting a drink. The Starship is not going to be the big Mars transporter. That's for Starship 2, 18-metre diameter. And there has been talk of an 18-metre version, so double the size of what we see here, or it's more than double the size. Double the diameter makes it much, much bigger. So yeah, there is talk of a future version that could say be an 18-metre one. That could probably comfortably take 100 people in one go. There'll be room to spare with that sucker. Yeah, that's exactly right. So Galaran here saying, you've got to remember how many people didn't think that they could land a Falcon 9 booster, and that's true as well. There was loads of talk about how that was never going to happen, it was never going to work, it was a ridiculous idea. They did it. They were never going to be able to catch the fairings. They did it. In fact, half the time they don't even seem to care to catch them anymore. They were never going to get humans to orbit. They did it. So, for anybody that's, not really following this like we do, they just don't know what they're talking about when it comes down to it. You've got to look at the successes that have happened. Sure, you can look at failures. You can always focus on failure. That's the worst thing you can do. You focus on moving on. You focus on trying to do better. Without failure, you can't grow, and that's no different from a child or myself. One of my kids, like when they fail, they learn. You don't learn as much by succeeding all the time, and you get complacent when you succeed all the time. Challenge is what it's all about. Thank you, Christian, for the super chat there. Very good of you. Did I miss a super chat earlier? Don't think so. That's okay. Yeah, for those that are just joining us, they've had an abort, obviously, which we've sort of said a number of times, but they're planning on reattempting here in about an hour and a half or something like that now. Why was the nose of the rocket red earlier? I don't know if I saw it red earlier. It was probably just, if there was any tinge of red, it might have just been reflection or something. I'm not sure. It is very early at your place. Well, if you're talking about my place, it's 8 a.m. here, so we've been going right through the night. Yes, and getting a little hungry, I will say. I'll take care of that in a moment. I'll probably do that in about 10 minutes or so. What is the diameter of Starship that we're seeing here is 9 meters wide. For those of you that don't sort of know the stats very intricately, it's 9 meters wide. The actual Starship itself is roughly 50 meters tall, and that's excluding the launch stand that it's on there. So, if you put people up there next to it, you can sort of see how tiny they are. There was a great little shot of people moving the fins last week in my video, and they were just pushing it with their legs, and they looked so tiny compared to the wing. It was kind of crazy. Yeah, so that's roughly 50 meters tall. For those that are metrically impaired, that's roughly 160 feet. So it's a big beast. Is there any other technology that can take us to space besides rockets? No, not that we know of at this point, unless we can use some sort of other higher form of energy. So, it's all chemical propulsion that we're using, and that's simply because you can release a heck of a lot of energy in a very short period of time. You can obviously use other forms of propulsion like ion thrusters and things like that have got a very low thrust, and they're super efficient. They got hugely, much higher specific impulse, but they don't have any ability to really break break gravity or get out of Earth's gravity well. So, yeah. Space elevator one day, maybe. Look, that's true. The whole idea of a space elevator has always seemed a little far-fetched to me, even if you did have the technology to do it. And the reason for that is more in a disaster scenario. So your space elevator has to go up so high that it's essentially sitting almost at a geostationary orbit from memory, because it needs to orbit. The arm has to orbit at the same speed as the Earth's rotating, right? Otherwise, it doesn't work. You'd end up, somehow winding it around the Earth or something weird. So it's got to sit out that far. But the problem with that is that's a huge distance. And I know they're saying, well, carbon fiber can be strong enough to reach that distance, but I forget the number off the top of my head. A geostationary orbit is an altitude of 35,780 kilometres. 22,000 miles is the cable length that you're talking about there. And that is... Sorry, that's it's beyond my comprehension to have a cable that strong that it can support that. And not only that, if you imagine something that long, if it breaks, and it's possible for it to break, what happens if an aircraft catches into it? What if a terrorist attack blows it up? Or there's any number of things that could bring this down. And yes, it would be a strong cable, and it would be, hardy and heavy duty, and it would, try to resist such things. But when it comes down to it, there's a way to break it. You hit it with something hard enough, something hits it in orbit, in a low Earth orbit, at the wrong direction at 7.6 kilometers per second, or whatever the relative velocity might be. There's nothing that's going to fully foolproof that cable from breaking. And if it breaks, you've got 35,000 kilometres of a massive cable. And we're not talking about something this thin. It's not, even with carbon fibre, it's going to be a thick cable, right? And the mass in that as it comes crashing back to Earth, I've never really liked the idea. I just, from a, it might be possible, but again, is it practical? So yes, anyway, that's my opinion on that. Anti-gravity technology. Yep, we don't have it. We don't have 22,000 miles of graphene cable. Not close to being able to manufacture that. That's absolutely true. Is it possible to manufacture such a cable in the future? Maybe. You'd have to do a heck of a lot of resource. I don't know what the thickness would have to be for this cable, right? But the material you would need would be astounding, I'm sure. So yes, anyway, that's my opinion on that. Got some super chats we need to go through. Let me scroll up here. Thank you so much, everybody. We don't have 22,000 miles of graphene cable, not close to being able Rob to Stewart, congratulations on 10,000 viewers earlier. You well deserved. Your stream made that abort effort feel worth watching. Fingers crossed for the next attempt. Yep, next attempt hopefully coming up soon. We'll have to bring up a slight countdown to that 2-hour window when I get back, I think. Why did SpaceX scrub the carbon fibre fuel tank? That was really because carbon fibre is a real pain in the neck to work with. And the cost of trying to manufacture carbon fibre tanks of that size and scale is pretty stupid. I can't quite recall the number difference, but it was like orders of magnitude cheaper. And also Elon Musk was saying more reliable, because certain grades of stainless steel will have better tolerances against heat and cold. So those things combined, although it was a heavier vessel, if you had a carbon fibre vessel, you would have to have a crap load more heat shielding, basically, which would make it almost as heavy again. So that was the decisions around the switch to stainless steel. And of course, stainless steel you can work with anywhere. You can stack it together out in a farm there, like they started off doing, and they you can do so much with it, and it's so cheap in comparison. So that's the reason for the scrub for not using the carbon fiber fuel tanks. Another super chat here from Lord Kurth. Orbital rings require less tensile strength than elevators, and if they break, they fall upwards. Orbital rings. Yeah, look, I'm not real versed with the theory of orbital rings. I can guess at what you're referring to there. I think I've seen the odd video about it, but I don't know much in depth about it. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat there, that this is to do with actually making essentially a ring that can either sit in orbit, that can. It's essentially like a static ring that maybe rotates around, and you could actually go to that one and then elevate to higher and higher ones. And if anything does break, because they've got that force, that centrifugal force, they would actually be flung outwards instead of crashing back to Earth. I think that's what we're referring to, but I'm not very versed on that. What else we got here? Ryan Hull, thanks for persevering through this whole thing. 6 hours plus. I enjoy your videos. Your fair dinkum deserve a beer. Yeah, I actually have run out of beer. That's a good point. Need to go and get some, don't I? I definitely need some breakfast and a coffee, though. So what I might do is actually take a quick break. I'll pop up a little timer so that when I'm returning, I'll maybe just do maybe a 10-15 minute break. We'll go for 10 for the moment. Let's see, where are we? So, whoops, that's the old countdown. Let's just fix that, shall we? About there somewhere, I would say. So I will also just whack on the There we go. So yes, I'll aim to be back in roughly 15 minutes. I'll grab a bit of a bite to eat, toilet run, say goodbye to the kids. They're going to head off to school in a minute, and I will be right back. We are sticking around, obviously, for the launch attempt number 2 for the day of Starship serial number 10. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me for all this time. I hope to see you back here soon. On the return of my little break here. Thank you so much. For all those that really want to support what I do, join button down below. There's alternatively there's Patreon. You get some little perks with that. For people often ask, what can I do to help support? If everybody reloads this live stream every now and again, YouTube ads help a lot in terms of revenue. So yes, appreciate all the help and the subscriptions and the likes. Appreciate it. Super duper awesome of you all. I will be back very soon. And yes, we will keep going then. Thanks, guys. I will chat to you very shortly. Where's my link? I'll just switch the camera off. I'll leave the just before I go. I'll make sure that I leave the Lab Padre stream going. So you can see if there's any, any sort of any news to talk about. It'll be interesting to see when I get back if there's anything much to talk about there. Okay, thanks, guys. I will be right back. Hey there, everybody. I am back. Looks like I'm back a minute late. That 15 minutes went fast. The kids are now at school, or they're at least heading to school, and we are sorted, ready to go again. So for those of you that are just joining us, and let me just do a quick mic check. Everyone can hear me, right? Everyone can hear us. Okay, that's fine. Yes, for those of you that are just joining us, there was an earlier attempt. It was aborted, and it is now going to essentially run into overtime. This one. This is going to go around. I'm just trying to figure out what the T-0 is now. We're roughly about, I would say, an hour and a half away from the next attempt. Maybe a little bit less, actually. I'll have to recalculate that in a moment. Let me just get rid of this text that's still hanging around on me. Go away. I am already back. All right. So yes, I have gone out, got a coffee. First coffee of the day, 8:30. We've only been streaming for what? 7 hours so far, or something like that. So yes, I have my NASA mug now. Oh God, that's hot. Yep, that's the point, Marcus. Okay. All right, question time. What do you guys want to know? What can we talk about? We have got a bit of time to kill. I guess for the people that aren't overly familiar with what we're attempting, or what we're going to be seeing attempted here with SN10, is again a flight to essentially a flight to 10 kilometers in altitude. Now that is still only, well, I mean, it's displayed that way on the SpaceX website, but I'm still not 100% convinced. I think that they could actually try to fly a little higher. I did a poll earlier in the week. There was a certain percentage of people that thought that maybe I was right, maybe it could head up towards 15 kilometers, but it remains to be seen. As far as we know, the official word is that it's going to fly to 10. I would like to see them do something different. Do they add weight for what? From Adam here. Do they add weight for what will be future payload / humans, etc. in, I'm assuming you mean in this particular vessel. I don't believe they're adding anything like that for this. They're really just loading it with a fairly small amount of fuel, really. Enough fuel to have the thrust to weight ratio that they need to do the test and come back down and land. As far as I'm aware, there's no mass simulator in this. It's just it's just using enough resources for the test, as far as I'm aware. Will they do that in the future? I would say so. I would say, especially if they're doing tests coming out from orbit and they want to make sure that it's safe for a certain volume of souls on board or cargo, that they will definitely be putting mass simulators on it. For the moment, they don't really need it because they can just turn a Raptor engine off and the thrust to weight drops and all that sort of thing. Really, they're just trying to perfect that whole flip and then come down and land. Traffic's just getting a little bit busier outside. I'll just shut this window a little. Sorry about that. Just trying to let a little bit of air in because it's going to start to heat up.